We're now going to look at the elements of music in a second listening lesson. This one is going to focus on The Flight of the Bumblebees and Mad World, that are two different songs, definitely different in their styles as well. So let's revisit that idea of you being a director for a movie and you're looking for music for a certain scene. Originally, Flight of the Bumblebees was meant to imitate busy and frequently changing flying patterns of the bumblebee. But you're not likely to be doing a video or a movie about bumblebees. Imagine what scene you think you would put this music with, and tell me what it is about the music that makes it match that idea in your head, that scene. So if we revisit those elements of music, your main melody instruments, the pitch is higher, which is making you think of something light and happy, perhaps, but your tempo is almost frantic. Things are so quick. You also have dynamics. That time where it sounded like the bumblebee might be flying close to you, it's the change in the volume is like something speeding by you. But in your movie scene, it's probably not bumblebees. What could it be? You've got changing texture, where you've got backup instruments that sometimes take on a bigger part, and therefore you've got almost like a busyness or um, perhaps more frantic feeling. Those are those dynamics. And there's that quick duration, very, very fast notes. There's almost like they're hovering in the same spot because the pitch was hovering. So when you're connecting this to a movie scene, you might be thinking of a chase, and maybe the characters that are chasing each other might be light and happy in some way to match those light, happy notes. The franticness, that movement would have to suit your scene as well. So you describe the movie scene, whether it's a chase, whether it's somebody getting anxious, whether it's something to do with that tempo perhaps, because then tempo could be quick or frantic, and that's what's making you think of that particular scene. Maybe it's somebody scrambling over rocks because things keep moving, nothing's stationary, the characters need to keep moving. I mentioned tempo being frantic in nature. You could also say the duration is very quick. There's a lot of movement in it. You could be saying that the pitch is high, and therefore you're thinking of perhaps something happier, or perhaps characters that are smaller, because we often associate high pitches either with happiness or with a lightness that you wouldn't get in a lumbering giant, for example. Maybe you're thinking of some lurking evil in your scene because there are some low notes that come in underneath to let you know that it's not all just fun and games. There's something else layering in there. Once you figured out what movie scene and then one element and describe it, make sure to explain how that element creates that effect, and feel free to add in other details here. Pause the video while you do your writing. Your second song for today is Mad World. It was written in 1982, so it's almost 100 years after The Flight of the Bumblebees. We've got a very big time gap. The Flight of the Bumblebees uses an orchestra. This one is a British band called Tears for Fears. And this one is supposed to evoke very different images. The character himself was thinking about nightmares and how that released tension and kind of let you let go of your worries in a very natural way. But well, listen to the sounds and see what impression you get. What movie scene might you use this in if you were a composer?
no tomorrow. And I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad.
If you listen carefully, you notice there's a distortion, almost a muted, muffled sound to the music.
It's hard to tell you, I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad world.
It's almost like he's getting a bit of an echo going on there, almost like he's underwater or something like that. There's that distortion feel. The texture of this one is very different from the last one because it's a piano dominantly with the voice. There are some other instruments starting to come in now, but he could be all on his own. It gives you a much more solitary, a much more lonely feel than the first one because that texture is so thin. Your articulation is very smooth. The energy level is low. The tempo is not moving very quickly. The duration of the notes is a little bit longer. That smooth feeling, it makes me think of water or almost things getting blurred because of that distortion, like he's living in a bubble or something like that. And we on the other side are getting that kind of warped perception of things. We have lower pitches, medium, as well as his voice is a little bit higher. But there's that running lower pitch as we go further on that's creating that deepness, perhaps also a little bit of sadness. The tempo could give you that sense of sadness because he's moving slowly, and perhaps the articulation as well because it is so smooth, like he doesn't have the energy to pick up his feet in a way. So when you go to write the scene for Mad World, think about, okay, there were distorted sounds. What sort of scene would I want to fit that with? Perhaps you've got a character that's having a harder time with fitting in, or maybe there's a character that's feeling disconnected from the rest of the world because it's almost like the reality that singer is in is a little bit different, like a dream or nightmare world where things are not sounding quite the way they normally do in the regular world. Then make sure you've got an idea of what element is creating that and what is it about that element that creates that. So maybe you want to talk about the timbre and how it's muffled or distorted to create that otherworldly sort of sense. Maybe you want to talk about the duration of the notes being very drawn out or slow, which is giving you that lower energy feel. So maybe the character is sad. You could be talking about let me look at some of these other terms here. The articulation being very smooth, like everything's kind of flowing along in almost floating in this other world. You could be talking about the texture being a little thinner, and therefore it seems like he's on his own, perhaps alone in the world. And make sure that once you've figured out what element you want here and you've described it, explain how you made this connection. Why did this sound make you think of this? Remember your rubric. To get up to the level 3, you are going to need musical vocabulary and you need to fully explain how that sound made you think of that idea. For your level 4, you've got a more detailed description, perhaps with some more descriptive words in there. So we know that you went beyond one single thought. You're looking at the bigger picture, the whole atmosphere created by that piece of music. And then your level wow, you've got very descriptive vocabulary that is really capturing the ideas. It's the word choice. It says so much more. So see if there's any words you might want to replace in your writing in order to make the quality of your work higher.